Oh, yeah.
I emailed Ms. Lowe, was it crucial.com, and she just sent me, she just let me know this today saying that she didn't see any of that price. Prices change. I try to be nice, but part of me stuff changes every day.
Okay.
No, but
She said she found for like 28 bucks instead of like 50.
Oh, I'm going to use
it amazes me that you can sustain that all the way between.
There's a response card that you can pick up. We're going to try and make this an interactive session. There's the response cards. Feel free to take one. Oh, wait.
I'm glad I'm gone. I'm anxious to lose because no one is.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming to the session. I didn't know how many people. I was worried we'd only have 2 or 3 people show up, given how many surveys are running around out there. My name is Eric Noble. I'm the IT director at UC Hastings Law School in San Francisco. And this session is about an idea that I hope I can convince all of you to that it's a good idea and something that will help us in transforming legal education. As someone who's interested in technology, I'm always trying to find out what the best practices are in other law schools, and the idea that I'm going to present hopefully will be something that will help us in that self-discovery. As I mentioned, I'm going to try and make this as interactive as possible. So Turning Technologies offered to provide their response cards for us, and Kevin Owens is here from Turning Technologies. He has a booth downstairs, so if you want to stop by. I'm pretty impressed after working with it a little bit, and we'll see how it works in the session today. So the first thing I'm going to try and do is a quick survey of everybody here. Do you consider yourself IT, library, faculty, staff, or other? So if everybody could ring in on that, we'll see how many responses we get. We'll wait for. There's a response card. Feel free to take. And here's our first little poll that we're taking. If you could respond to that. Are you? Do you consider yourself IT, faculty, library, or other? All right. Has everybody responded? Then we'll see who we have here today. Okay. Well, kind of what I expected. Curious about the other?
Me, or Eric.
John, of course. Let me, before I go there, let's see here. As the IT director, one of the things that I do in my job, of course, is to try and stay ahead of technology and make proposals about new initiatives, new projects. And inevitably, when I come to the dean or the CFO and I make a proposal, the question that I always get is, what are other law schools doing? And fortunately, we do have Teknoids, and Teknoids is a great resource. But I'll usually get, half a dozen responses to the question, not anything really comprehensive. So let's do a quick poll here. Have you ever made a suggestion only to get asked, what are other law schools doing? Okay. Responses to that? Yes, very good. Then I think you're in the right session today. One of the questions that usually follows that, or kind of a sub-question, is as a UC school, the dean is always asking, what are the other UC schools doing? So the question might be, what are X, Y, and Z doing? And wouldn't it be helpful if you could go to that meeting with your dean with a graph like this, showing this is student to IT staff ratio. And if you were the us, wouldn't this be a useful slide or a useful printout if you were asking for more staff, which is something that I do occasionally. Well, actually, somebody already is doing this. EDUCAUSE has something that they call their core data service. It's a survey that they send out to all of their members, and once a year they publish the results. How many people are familiar with EDUCAUSE's core data service, knew that they had a survey? It's not very well known among law schools. EDUCAUSE publishes the results once a year. It's for the previous fiscal year. It's available online. It's publicly available. And here's the actual this is the most recent data they published on that very question of student to IT staff ratios. So if somebody's already doing it, what's the issue? What's the problem? Well, there's a couple of issues. First of all, in the most recent survey, 997 schools participated. Of those, only 4 were law schools. And the other issue is that the range of schools that EDUCAUSE is surveying has a much broader institutional mission than the thin slice that would be law schools. So their numbers are skewed for what we would be looking at. So for example, this is why we really need our own Callie law school survey. For that very same ratio, EDUCAUSE is showing 137 students to 1 IT staff person. Whereas if this was Callie, I would imagine that the ratio is closer, the average is closer to what I show here. If I went with the EDUCAUSE survey and I was asking for more staff and our ratio was already 138, our dean would say, well, we're right within the range of what other schools are doing. There's one other problem with the EDUCAUSE survey, and that is that what they're looking at really is, in university situations, central IT versus departmental IT. They're looking at the centralized staff, and that's what they're asking questions about. Our survey would be from the opposite point of view, looking at within the law school compared to resources that you're getting from the central campus. One thing that we need to, one thing that though EDUCAUSE does that I really like, I mean the core data survey that they do is wonderful, but one thing that we really need to take away and use as a model is what they call peer groups. One of the advantages of the core data survey at EDUCAUSE is if you participate, you then can go in and interactively look at the database. And you can look at all of the data, run all the queries. There's about 60 questions that they ask, so you can look at all those. And the nice thing is you can actually construct your own peer groups so that you can then ask the data, query the data from your peer group perspective. So you can see what those X, Y, and Z schools are doing. So I'm here to propose that we, as Callie Law Schools, that we we put together our own core data survey, and that we do this on a regular annual basis. We update so that we can see trends. We have data that we can go to, so the beginning point really is the questions, coming up with the questions, and that's one of the things I'm hoping we can do today. Yes.
Just a quick question. The ABA data doesn't do it for you, obviously.
It's too general, I think. I mean, there's questions that, we'll get into some of the questions, but there's a lot of questions I think that aren't being asked. So I'm hoping that out of the session today we'll start coming up with some of the questions. I sent an email out, a questionnaire to all the deans of law schools earlier this week, and I've gotten some responses asking the deans what they would like to see. What I would like to do is to gather the questions and from all different constituencies in the legal education community. There's a response card you can pull up there. So here are the topics or categories that I've put together. And what I'd like to do in a few minutes is that we break up into small groups and think about each of these categories. IT staffing and organization, questions about where IT is located in the law school, how the reporting structure, the different functions that report to IT, IT planning, issues like strategic plans, how do you do planning, who's involved in the planning within your law school, financing issues, what are the budgets, are there student technology fees, academic and student computing, how is technology being used in the classroom, what type of support are you giving to students in your law school, infrastructure, network issues, security, how are you doing authentication, how are you handling wireless, and then finally information systems, library and other information systems. What type of administrative databases are you using? Are those homegrown, in-house? Do you use vendors? All those types of issues. So, a couple questions that are kind of current. These are just samples. Let's do a quick poll. Where does IT report in your law school? Does it report do you report directly to the dean, the IT department, or the IT group? To the are you within the library? CFO? Or there is no separate IT. It's really handled by the central campus. Here are the results. So That's interesting. About a third each. There's so we have 3 different models that we see in law schools, and in discussions I've had with other IT directors, this is very familiar. That sounds very accurate. So the next question is, has that reporting changed in the last 5 years? Okay, some change, some movement. That will be something that I think that the survey, that the CALI-CoreDataSurvey would help us to see is trends over time. Okay, here's a question that's on a lot of people's minds. This is something I get asked from faculty, both at Hastings and other schools. How are you doing supporting Macs? I've had 3 faculty in the last week tell me they've decided to buy a Mac. So the answers are great. We've always supported Macs. That's just a sample response. Pretty good. We saw the handwriting early. We're still learning though. Not so good. We're stumbling, and we definitely insist that they buy AppleCare if they're going to buy a Mac. The 4th is we turn Macs away at the door. Totally confused, the 5th answer. No grades in here. Okay.
There's a Mac session right now.
That's it. I was going to say Tom Bruce is not in the room. Here's a question that came in from this questionnaire that I sent out to the deans earlier this week. How are you doing with the laptop in the classroom issue? We figured out how to turn off wireless. Some faculty have banned laptops altogether. The students rebelled, so we backed down. What laptop in the classroom issue?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
In our school, some laptops are banned from schools, but it's from the classrooms. But internet is a different issue than banning the laptop. And the professors that are banning laptops ban because they don't want to look at a laptop, so they don't want students even taking notes, which is different from the wireless internet access issue.
Well,
if you're going to do a survey, you have to keep that in mind.
Sure,
Those are 2 different issues.
well, the first thing that I always get asked is, can we turn the wireless off?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually talked to somebody yesterday who said that they're painting their windows with, they're considering painting the windows with lead so that they can block the broadband. Because that's always if you turn the wireless off, you still have broadband. So, has anybody responded to this? I'm missing one response. There we go.
Do you have to put stickers on the lead to tell the students not to?
Okay, that's really interesting. So we're seeing this rebellion from faculty, and in our school, several faculty have banned laptops, and the students seem fine with it. We gave a session, and actually John came to Hastings last year, and the topic of the session was, should we ban laptops in the classroom? And we had a good showing of faculty, and they were rambunctious. And absolutely 0 students showed up. It's amazing.
They didn't care. But see, I have a feeling that the students don't care. It might be worse than it sounds. It's not that students care about banning laptops, it's that they don't care about class. You know what I mean? So we don't care what you do in class because I don't care. That's not where I'm doing my learning. I'm doing my learning outside the class because the lecture isn't teaching. No.
Just what the plenary speaker was talking about.
Right,
today.
right. You know, the lecture is broken. I go learn by my, you know, I figure out how
Stop
to
all the games at the classroom door.
But some on your questions could be one faculty member
Yeah.
answer. So your results might not be as dramatic as
Yeah. Yes.
Eric, are you open to doing a collection of data other than IT related? Are you keeping it just IT related for a reason?
Well, that's an interesting question. When I brought this up with our dean, because I wanted to make sure everything was copacetic with this, I mean, the sense I got was it's okay if you keep this in terms of technology, but if you're talking about something broader, I don't know, John, what do you?
Well, you don't want to overlap what the ABA surveys, site survey stuff does. You know, they already collect a bunch of information. I guess it's a matter of audience, and since the audience is aimed at IT directors primarily, right?
Well, you saw the graph at the beginning. I think.
Who's most responsible for IT then? Let's put it that way.
Well, who answers the questionnaire would be, that's probably going to be an IT person, but I want questions that go to the faculty use of technology and how well students are supported. So I think it's technology, but I really want it to be broader than just the IT staff, IT people.
Yeah, or just turn the question around. What do you want? Did you mean?
Well, that's an interesting comment. That the IT staff is going to be answering it, but I don't know that IT in some instances would necessarily have a good handle on how faculty are using technology because of the way, I'm a perfect example. I'm with the Faculty Center. The Faculty Center is kind of the liaison between the faculty and IT. So if somebody in IT is responding to your questions, I don't know that they would necessarily have a good handle on how faculty are using it. So I guess that kind of brings my question.
And maybe one of the deciding factors of what sort of question you would ask is whether it's already covered by the ABA or by the U.S. News. And if this was something that was actually going to be owned by Callie and isn't going to be used by an outside evaluating organization, people might have a very different class of questions and also might be a lot more frank in their answers.
Well, we want to create a ranking system based on the results of this so that we can rank law schools. Because that seems to be a popular thing to do.
Well, and it seems to be the best way to get kickbacks.
Yeah.
Then we'd have to suck up to you.
And you don't already. Kneel before we say no. Well, this is the point of this session is more of a, we think we've done surveys for years. We would now like to stop doing a whole bunch of ad hoc surveys and sort of just start saying, that once a year we do a survey where we ask the important questions, and then we can start doing comparative data year to year and institutional comparative data. The EDUCAUSE core data survey is the model for that because they do exactly that sort of thing. And so that's what. And so as to what questions will be asked or how the information could be used, totally open to what the best thing to do there is, and that's what the conversation for this session.
I just wonder if there'd be a discrepancy between an IT response or a faculty-centered response or whatever.
Oh, of course. As a matter of fact, the problem is going to be getting the right person to fill out the
Right.
survey, just like it is with, the ABA surveys and things like that. But when you start out, you take what you can get, and then you improve on that, right? Basically.
Well, one of the questions I asked the deans was, in your law school, who should answer the question? And actually, of the responses, it's been 50% have been the library director, and 50% the IT director. Ken, did you have a question?
Yeah, Eric, when everyone walks out of this room, what are the plans for ongoing development and input? Because it would seem to me you might want some kind of steering committee to guide this.
I'm open to all
And if you
suggestions.
do, I'm volunteering for
Oh,
it.
fantastic. Everyone heard him.
Maybe we should make our relationship explicit. Callie has hired Eric as a consultant to make sure that this project happens. Because if you just take this project and say, gee, it'd be nice if we did a survey, everybody says, yeah, that's great, crickets happen. And so I'm putting money where my mouth is to say, Eric, you came to me and said, wouldn't it be cool if Callie did this? And I said, Eric, you really care about this? And he's like, yeah, I really do. And I said, how about if I give you some money to make sure it happens? Because I want you to do more than just lead volunteers. I want you to actually marshal the effort that it's going to take over a couple of years to have a successful survey. And that's the arrangement that we've got. And so,
But Ken's question is very germane. We need to figure out how the input's coming, because I could come up with a set of questions, but I don't know. Those aren't what you're thinking of. So this is kind of the first moment of this, first start of this conversation, I think.
mm-hmm.
So that leads us into the. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just to follow up, you might maybe want the steering committee to have representatives from each of those management models in terms of the library director or separate IT department, CFO or whatever you call it.
One of the questions I was thinking of putting in, but I didn't want to put too many questions, because the next part of what we're going to do is actually, I want you to come up with questions, and then we'll add those into this PowerPoint, because that's one of the nice things about this turning point system. You can add questions. So I want to hear what questions everybody here has. But one of the things I was thinking of, how many in your law school, is there a faculty committee to talk about technology? That would be where I'd want to go for that third prong. We'll do that. So anyway, let's talk about this small group exercise. We've gotten to the point of the sharing, the collaborative part. One of the things that I've always liked about Callie is the idea of collaboration. And so let's do some collaboration. I was thinking that what we could do is divide the room into half and then take the first 2 rows, the middle row, and the last 2 rows. So we have 6 sections to talk. And you can stay where you're at, or you can move to the section that you want. So we could start over here, and the first 2 rows are section 1, staffing and organization. The middle row would be the second, which is discussing IT planning issues. And then the back 2 rows, financing issues, budget, fees. Then over here, the first 2 rows would be academic and student computing. The middle row, infrastructure, security. And the back 2 rows, library and other information systems. So I was thinking, let's take 5 to 10 minutes, talk among yourselves. What are questions that you have about how other schools are doing these categories within their schools? Come up with 1 or 2 questions that you'd like to add to the polls today, and then the sample answers that we would put together on the form.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I'm old. I'm trying to figure out exactly where they map in the room. But I'm also actually interested in all of them. So
That we would have.
I just assume come up with a question for each of them.
Okay. Well, what's the question?
What are you guys on? Number 6?
Yes.
It's too big a palette there.
You think it should be broken out? I think that's like
Remind you all.
I don't know. I mean, the obvious question is, you want to know everything.
I put library just because
It was an essay question. Pretty easy, right? Infrastructure and security. This is the hard one. Because most places own their own infrastructure.
I guess they're kind of branch off depending on your
Let's assume it's no, let's get the next second. If it's yes, then it's,
Well, I was thinking more, the answer to this is, who runs your infrastructure? One would be, the law school, the college, the university. What are the answers, possible answers? And then once we get that list of who is,
or is it could be a combination? Because sometimes you outsource your library, if your library, you might be here and there.
right?
That's the thing, you have to figure out how to operate questions.
Because I don't
Just trying to think, so like student copying, student printing, main campus runs it.
so it sounds like you feel like
Student copying is outsourced. Campus does the student.
CFO.
We've since I arrived here last year, we're now doing the copying, scanning, packing, telephones. We do the local management. Actually, the campus has voice.
Now, did you have to put on the infrastructure, or do we need to break it somewhere?
I was going to break it down.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah, we're on the servers, we don't run the network, we don't run the Wi-Fi. We do both, because we just put our web on.
Our answer is
Well, but it's a question.
And it actually does raise issues for us that are very vendor
The question is, what is it?
Yeah.
Separate out whether is it jack or
Yeah.
jack, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think to me it's servers, it's the network, it could be Wi-Fi, wireless. Yeah, the door system.
So infrastructure is servers, yes.
Yes.
It's Wi-Fi, it's wiring,
Yeah.
it is,
VoIP.
is it your alarm system? Is it your
Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
physical?
Is this voice phone?
Is it what?
Voice phone?
That's right. Is it, maybe.
I think at this point, it would have hurt if we accidentally got into some of the other categories. Like student computing, like who runs your student computing? Is that a student computing question? Or is it
I would think the student, to me, the student printing and copying is an infrastructure more than, well, I don't know, it's doing
Well, but that was my point. It doesn't matter because they could, once they get all the questions, they say, oh, it's in category 4, at category 5, we'll just put it in 4. They don't come up with that. So I got to show them.
the student to IT staff ratio. That's the actual data in education for law school. And we are the us.
But that can also be your security.
Well, that's why I say, that's what the question was, how do you self-identify?
Information security manager and administrator. We've got, I'm a level 2 ISN. I don't know, PA or N? My boss, my dean is the administrator.
I don't want to. You don't want to end up in a.
So is where's F1?
Yeah, on our, at University of Florida, you have, the level 1 or the campus security people, and the level 2 are the departmental. Yeah.
Who's in charge of security? What's the reporting procedures? Are we concerned about the length of this survey?
You put it out there and then
No, it's a matter of if you ask too many questions and people don't fill out, then you do it.
As somebody who is,
yeah, but we're in the
EBA survey had that
brainstorm,
problem.
we're in the brainstorm session. Put it out there and then call it.
I remember when you first started working with
Or not.
What other questions? Ask questions, and we'll write down questions and we'll gather them into something. So what are the reports for
So is he still at?
We got the servers network, phone copiers. See, I add copiers in there because we support the copiers.
Copiers or scanners or faxers?
Yeah, we pretty much come in.
So you have a
plugs in and
20
support. But the network itself, campus. Classroom infrastructure, media, classroom technologies. Yeah, I would want to know what people have in the classroom. Yeah, projectors, document cameras, PCs, microphones, speakers. What kind of recording systems?
Either in general or for specific reasons, that if your admin M is having a problem.
So this is what you're seeing on this.
Now look here, we
The level of detail, frankly, there's certain things I don't think are that valuable.
There's nothing about
In other words, it's like, well, what brands Ethernet cables?
You know, what they ask are
For that matter, what brands
questions
cables?
like, what function? And they have all these different.
By the time the survey comes out,
That's right, that's right. So it's, you know, it's reversed.
hey, what are you guys buying?
And things change too. As we were flying here, I would have been interested in microphones. If anyone has a closed captioning system, we got here and Dean for students says, "Oh, it's got someone deaf that we need to do closed captioning." We have microphones that can pick up the students' side of the conversation, so we can close caption it. We don't have that. Oh crap.
Then they get these like little speakers something like this all over the place.
We do have some speakers on bigger ones, but the microphone is generally used for the instructors.
This is like a typical amazing room.
Yeah, this one's full.
Well, that.
I'm listening for the sound. It's an infrastructure question.
I have media technologies, Callie microphones, that all looking at the survey.
Is everybody about ready?
Well, I thought we were just going to assume everybody's got that.
Couple more minutes and then we'll come back together.
We're putting in disaster recovery issues, that's a security issue.
We have a
Oh yeah, look at the results.
No, I understand what technology is.
Part of the problem with that is that if you're trying to figure out how to lose target, you can't do it.
That's our policy.
Of what?
Yeah.
Support which way. It feels like it's you do boot camp thing, and you buy Windows, you install it, you're ready to go.
Because I just think over time, point that didn't show you what you need to do for that. I don't know.
I'm not an IT director, I've only been there for a minute. But it looks like it's gotten so complicated. A lot of IT is treating carefully pick the stuff that you're going to pay attention to. It's like spending a lot of time on investment. What you should just do is buy big ads and just decide if you're going to charge them or not. And then well, you need to develop our own software.
You need color printing and copyright.
Whatever. It's like a few years back, I started to tell people were at, what do you do on that same problem with email and this one? It's both into Gmail.
This question, who runs their own email server?
Yeah, it's a massive figure out. But that's the way it's outsourcing your initiative. Let somebody else. Commodity. Well, you guys go to the Amazon cloud section. I'm wondering why anybody had servers at this point.
Do we need much more time?
Well, pay Amazon.
Because, John, we have all that metal that we can't immediately throw away our investment.
Well, that investment though decreases in value by the minute.
Well, yeah.
So 3 years.
But don't forget, as much as anyone else, people are IT control freaks. I certainly am.
Control freak.
We'll start back up at 15 after. Just another minute.
1 more minute.
Shifting lines. How many surveys you need?
So there's another angle to this survey is if you can find other people that are like of similar situation to you. So it's a law school that's like yours, you know the size and political issues. And then you can find out what they're doing. Or you're thinking of doing something. You can call up their folks. Hey, we're the same size, blah blah blah. I noticed you got like this.
How'd you do this?
You bought data centuries, whatever it is, security operations, or guns in the classroom alert system, whatever. How's that going for you? It's that sort of this information will help people share instead of just the blast on Teknoids. On the other hand, maybe the blast on Teknoids is good enough. But it's a little ham-handed too.
But don't you also want the question on these year policies for something
detail? Yeah.
Well, maybe that should be at the end of every
Callie and meet some people.
Oh, absolutely. We could do it more, but one meeting a year is the best we can do. What was the report?
Okay, here we go. Reports back.
Callie next year.
One of the nice things about this software is that you can enter questions on the fly. So if anybody's interested in actually using turning point classrooms and teaching, that's one of the things that I discovered that would make this possible, what we're going to do now. So group one, do you have a couple questions for us?
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Can I just type yes, no? Actually, right. Okay. So polling is open. This is actually a very good question, and I'm glad you mentioned this because where I come from, we are standalone. And a lot of the questions that I would be asking, one of the things that I need to understand is how to ask questions from the larger group of law schools which are part of a campus, and the relationship between your IT and the central campus IT. We supply everything where I come from. So, by the way, Kevin wanted me to make sure the green light tells you if your response has been received. So, has everyone typed a response here?
Take your last vote.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize there were that many. I just figured that I was one of just a handful here at the Cali conference. So about a third of us are standalone. So that will be something really key, is to understanding the different types of questions that we have. Did you have another question?
Sure. Does your IT department report to the law school or central campus? Or a combination? Yes.
Assumes you have one to start with. An IT department. I wouldn't be here if you didn't have a law school to start with.
Doesn't that ignore one of the things you're already doing? That is, sometimes it's,
You're the radical.
you say, report to the library.
We're librarians, we're going to be that way.
I think
Does that fairly represent?
That's the law, if it's the law library within the law school. It was sort of a large question. We get more detail.
Let me ask a meta question. What I'm hearing is that it used to be easy to answer these questions. There was an IT department, they reported to this person. You used to be able to say, well, there's the dean in charge, the law library director's in charge, blah. In the many years that I've been around now, it sounds like it's a lot mushier. And the question is whether the survey can ignore the mushiness because it's irrelevant detail, or whether the mushiness is where all the interesting information is. And that what you need to do is dive into that sort of subtlety of detail or that nuance. And that's what I'm asking.
Well, I think
The subtlety is more important. The fact that some parts are in the library now and there's a media department that doesn't think of itself as IT, even though they plug cameras into the internetwork, into the internet and so on.
Definitions.
And so it's about definitions, and that's harder. That's going to be a much harder survey in some ways, because you got to explain to people what terms you're using. But is that valuable, or is that just not relevant to get all meta on people?
I was showing.
It is valuable? Crap.
I mean, I know in our situation, we actually have two IT departments. We have the internal of the library. We have a second one that actually services the university as a whole and does, has certain other responsibilities outside of the library.
What school you at?
UB, Baltimore.
Baltimore? Mm-hmm.
And we had that as a question also because we know of some examples like yours that you have a central one for the university, one for the law school, and then one for the library.
Right.
So, there's a lot of different.
This is messy.
Well, especially if it's changing too, I think it's important to keep track of that as well, because our deans are looking at other places that they would want to know this kind of information, especially if something critical happens, like the head of IT leaves, or the head of the library leaves, or something like that. That's when they look to make changes.
So in answer to this question, if you're in the mushy category, hit number 3.
Well, even the phraseology there is problematic because we're a law school with 3 campuses. So when we say central campus,
Well, you know what we mean.
Parent institution.
Or larger institution.
How would a library center want to know that they were other hybrid as opposed to the law school?
It's all about the definitions.
Well, the EDUCAUSE folks must have run into this.
Well, that leads to
How do they solve it?
That leads to my suggestion, my next suggestion, I'm sorry. I'm sure I'll come up with others. Is the place to begin would be to look at both the EDUCAUSE survey and the ABA annual questionnaire and pick and choose from those start as a foundation from to which you're going to add things
Mhm.
or adapt them. There will be plenty of questions on the ABA questionnaire, for example, related to libraries that you can, with some tweaking, make applicable to IT.
So a third of us answered the mushy category. So that's, we're going to have to figure out how to phrase these questions.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be a mushy category number three, it can be broken down
Into-
further.
right.
Actually, that, one of the things that we come up with is that whatever survey software you end up going with, it's probably a good idea to get one that has it. So depending on your response, the one question, you're taking off to another subset of questions. So you have four, which that occurred.
Okay. So second group, was there a second group? Planning issues? Okay, no one wants to deal with planning, that's fine. Financing, was that your group?
Yeah, we came up with like 3 questions.
Okay.
We want to know who controls the IT budget.
So what are the responses?
Well, we were thinking something like the CFO. Is it done by committee? And you guys can kind of pitch in and help us come up with various options.
Provost?
The
Do you consider the
library.
provost the CFO,
The
or?
dean or, well, we have a CFO. I assume it's the same as the provost.
No, it's committee.
A
it's
provost
committee,
is a
real
university
committee.
officer.
I don't know.
Is it what?
I'm not
Is
standing.
committee a real, like an IT committee, or is committee meaning a group of people? Again,
We
definitions,
got 5 minutes left.
because it really depends on what it
The
is.
future here.
Pushing to the future. I'm starting to feel like I'm at AALL.
Or even if you even have a budget, I would say instead of other committee, it could just be multiple. Because you got multiple people responsible for that budget, you know, as opposed to
Sure,
just.
what you mean by the word controls.
You've got
What's the definition of the word
a dean,
is?
you may have an IT director, and they may all be responsible together.
Mushy. Okay. We're gonna add a mushy category to all these slides. All right, so let's do this one.
It's always safe to go with Dean. So Dean control everything.
We're waiting for that 16th response.
You're not playing the Jeopardy theme music is the problem.
Somebody has an answer?
Sorry, he just woke up.
There we go. So CFO, a quarter of us. With standalone law schools, I think probably CFO. The CFOs in the standalone law schools, they have their own group that meets. No? What?
I'm a standalone, and I mean, the interesting thing, again, not to beat the definitions thing into a pulp, but I'm the library director, but I actually view the two roles as separate. I view it as two separate departments. I have library and I have IT. I don't think IT is subsumed into the library, but under that definition,
Yeah.
I would be.
And in our school, we have a separate IT department, separate from the library. I'm the library director, and I have a CIO. We each have our own budget that we're responsible for, but there's a portion of each of our budgets that we share for technology in the library. So we're I can answer multiple.
The two masters problem.
Okay. Another question?
Second question was, where does your funding come from? We were thinking things like tuition, state funding, maybe developments. Anything else you guys have come up with?
Cookie sale.
Student fees.
Well, that's you can't just limit. Can you have questions where you don't limit the responses to one answer?
You can, but not beyond the FICA to set it up.
So how would they?
Checkbox, yeah.
So we
What's
have
the
to
chief
come up
source
with
of
Check all those that apply.
Well, maybe it's a bad question because there's just, if you can't answer that because it comes from all three, I don't know.
In the real survey, you just, you can set up a question and it's being, sort of being a radio button, just a checkbox.
Right. The way EDUCAUSE does it is they have percentages, and you indicate the percentage where your funding source comes from. So, what about another question?
Do you have a tech fee, a technology fee?
Student technology fee.
Right.
And who gets it? That would be the follow-up question.
I think we should oppose a faculty technology fee.
That's a simple yes, no, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
We get a year where they use up their whole test time.
Obviously, in the real world, this would not be an issue, but I don't know, so.
I don't either.
So I can't answer that question. But in the real world, whoever's answering
Maybe
this.
I don't know.
Well, if you don't know, then the answer is no. Because you would have heard about it.
No, I'm in the library.
It's an embedded fee, it's a hidden fee, it's
Yes.
not called a tech fee. It's a
Right.
membership
Yeah,
fee.
you
We should have added the mushy category.
If you don't know, call and find out.
The church students is separate.
So, about half and half. Well, that would be, that's a question EDUCAUSE asks, and they don't have, there isn't a mushy category. When I was answering it, I had to think, because we have something called examination fee, and it's used for technology, but it's not specifically a technology fee, so. Third group. Was this the third group?
Yeah, I guess so.
So academic and student computing.
I'm going to make it one more minute.
And I spoke with John Christensen from Washburn, and John thinks this category is much too broad. It needs to be a lot more granular, as well as the information systems category at the end. So the categories aren't set in stone either at this point. But a couple questions?
We'll come up with 6, but we'll start at the beginning. What is your laptop requirement policy when you're admitted to law school? And then it's very simple, either optional or required, but then of course we have to delve deeper into different things.
Well, can we say yes or no to this?
Optional and required, I think, is the, I'm sorry. Yes or no?
Do we need mushy here?
No.
Recommended.
No.
Yeah, for the max.
It's a binary question. You can tell, John, there will be significant branching in these questions.
Is that all the responses? Okay. Wow.
That many?
Wow, that is, I had no idea it was that
Who's
many.
got laptop requirements these days?
We do.
We do, that's not.
Really?
Okay,
Require
one more?
Oh, yeah.
Jason, did you have a
Undergraduate,
Everything.
even have to require
The question is,
50,000
required
students at the University of
is
Florida
a
have to have a
particular
laptop.
model purchased by the school.
But I mean,
Okay, if so,
That's the
is
requirement.
there
It's the law.
specific?
well, you just require that they have access to a computer, though.
So we're really only asking this, is there a question that's a broader question?
Oh,
They have to have
they can just
a
have
laptop.
it.
Yeah, what is your,
An actual laptop.
what is your laptop, what is your policy?
But that's something we're going through right now.
Okay, well, let's go on to the next group, since we're almost out of time.
Requirement.
If you go to our webpage, yeah, there's a laptop requirement at the law school.
Well,
Does it
a
ever
lot of
come
schools with laptop requirement.
Next
Makes it
group,
easy to borrow.
networking.
Yeah, well,
We
first
don't have
of all,
enough time.
our first question is, what is infrastructure? Yes, no. And then the second question is, isn't security just an illusion? Yes, no. No, I don't know. What else? What do we have? we had all sorts of questions, do you control your own infrastructure, or who controls your infrastructure? But that just goes back to, is your central or located and things like that, so that's not a good question. What are your reporting structures for security? But, again, that just says, do you talk to the dean, the library director, the CFO, or something like that? Maybe like, do you have a disaster recovery plan?
Good.
Which is one of those things that's very hot right now, obviously.
Do you know what it is? Maybe not.
Yeah, and then you can go deeper on that, like, yeah, right, do you really have one?